Everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. Shocking developments out in South Beach. The Celtics have forced a Game 7 after being down 0-3. This is unprecedented territory that the Celtics are going to try to pull off and duplicate what the 2004 Boston Red Sox did. That is the main topic on this show tonight. We're also going to be speaking on the happenings around MLB and the Dallas Stars forcing a Game 6. I know Mr. Zappy is happy about that. My co-host, Mr. Mike Zappy, San Antonio, Texas. Also, where will DHOP go? And what's happening with Dalvin Cook? We're going to speak on all of it, but we're going to start in South Beach, Boston Celtics. Zappy, I thought the game was over, and then out of nowhere comes a savior. That was wild. Celtics almost gave it away, though.
The Celtics gave it away. The Celtics gave this game away. They had every opportunity to blow this team out, but instead they were just sitting there allowing Miami to climb back in. And it turned into the possession of Jimmy Butler shooting the ball, getting fouled for 3. They take a 1-point lead, and all you got to do is come up with one stop. And they forgot to box out Marcus Smart shoes at Derek White with the tip in. And wow, this whole series is crazy. It's surprising me right now because, as you alluded to, talking about Boston, what they did in their comeback versus the Yankees, it feels like we're about to witness it again, but this time with the Boston Celtics. And it would just be mind-blowing to see two professional sports teams come back from down 0-3 and win the series and be from the same city.
No, it's truly remarkable, man, because I think the theme for half of the series is, holy shit, an 8 seed is going to win the NBA Finals or at least the conference. Hasn't been done since the 99 Knicks. And that was in a strike-shortened season, so this was like bigger what the Heat were trying to pull off. And, it's like a quiet comeback. I think that's the thing that's so weird about this because, when Miami took Game 4, or rather gave Game 4 away, I wasn't thinking much about it. And I said, Miami in 6, that was my prediction going in. And my prediction was short by, 0.2 of a second, 1/10 of a second?
If that.
And this is
get reviewed, so...
How do you emotionally recover from that is the question. I mean, Miami has proven that they are mentally tough during the course of these playoffs, but they're going to have to dig very deep. You're coming to one of the more iconic atmospheres in all of the NBA. You're going to look up and you're going to see 17 banners looking at you. This is just unbelievable. I can't believe what I witnessed tonight. But the reason why I wouldn't completely give up on Miami yet, Jimmy Butler, he didn't really get into the game all the way. And I still think that playoff Jimmy's going to show win or lose in Boston. I think we're looking at a classic Game 7.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Jimmy Butler, who shot 5 for 21 today from the field. And then you talk about Bam Adebayo shooting 4 for 16, 9 for 37 combined. I mean, if there's something positive to take out of this for Miami is they hung in there the whole way, had the game won. All it took was just a simple box out, and they win that game. It's similar to Ray Allen and all that.
You literally took the words out. Pop didn't put Duncan in that fateful NBA Finals.
Yeah, but in this situation, it was miscommunication. Yeah, it was same building. But it's, if there's a couple things to look at as the positive side is for Miami, yeah, you lost the game. You're going to Game 7. You're going to have to go into hostile territory. But the grit this team showed closing the game out is something that cannot go unnoticed because they should have lost this game early, but they kept fighting and they were there till the very end, till literally a millisecond.
I mean, after the game, Jaylen Brown even said that, we have a bad habit of not closing the door. They
can't do that again.
They did it against the Hawks. in the first round. They did it in Philly, with that making a three that didn't count. This is like Boston's makeup game for the Philly win that didn't count, is the way I look at it. Different series, but they all count. These are all minutes that you're playing. These are all playoff games, and even games that you win. They can hurt you later in the playoff season if you take too long to dispose of certain teams. I mean, Boston has stretched it. Miami, to me, they're kind of playing with house money, even though tonight was a terrible way to lose because they're the 8th seed. Bottom line, they're a playing team.
Yeah, that's the other part to consider about this is we're talking about the team that was just in the finals a year ago, had a 2-1 lead to the Warriors and lost the series 4-2, but they are the team that was expected to be here. Miami had a good start, but then slowed down, and we started questioning who this Miami team is until we literally get to the play-in. They're the 8, and they lose and have to win the second game to continue on. Like, there's a lot to say about this team. So it's definitely – we're to the point now where it's a mind game. I'm expecting Jimmy and I'm expecting Jason to both have marvelous Game 7s. The stage is set. If you're not a basketball fan or if you're a somewhat basketball fan, this is the game to watch that would bring you back in because I fully expect this to be a Jimmy and Jason show this week. And it's just going to come down to, will Jaylen Brown or Marcus Smart be that number 2 for Tatum? And will it be Adebayo and will Duncan Robinson or Harrell or somebody step up?
Yeah, are you gonna get like the random guy that steps up? Is it gonna be Strus? Is Zeller gonna come off the bench and contribute and surprise somebody? The Miami bench is unpredictable. I mean, who knows? Does Kevin Love throw it back and hit a few key threes that could sway the game, or make those outlet passes that nobody else in the league does quite as good as him?
And he was making those key threes in the first 3 games of the series.
Yes,
it almost seemed like he made that shot and Miami never looked back. And now we see these last 3 games, he hasn't really done that. So maybe that's what it is. There's a lot of variables that could happen for Miami. But me personally, I still think the pressure is on Boston and not Miami. Even though Miami blew a 3-0 lead, I still think the pressure's on Boston. I
tend to agree with you for the sheer fact that they are the defending Eastern Conference champions. They are the number 2 seed. They were in the finals last year against Golden State. They are a team that some might believe has a window that's closing. And as far as Miami goes, the one thing that I've seen through every series they've played in, whether it's Milwaukee, whether it was the Knicks, what they're doing right now, this is not a team that panics. And I must also admit, this is the kind of team that I don't necessarily think it's the adjustments that Boston has made that has swayed the series. I mean, obviously they have dug deep and they're grabbing a different kind of intensity to do what they got to do. But I actually think it's as simple as Miami's just not shooting the ball as well as they were in the first 3 games. And sometimes that's just the rim not liking you.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that the ball wasn't falling down for them tonight and in your own home court, it almost seemed like the rim was not on their side because there was dude, come on, man. Just between yeah.
I think you're going to see playoff Jimmy Game 7. What's your prediction, Game 7?
I think we're going to have ourselves an instant classic. I do not think that, while it's easy to say that Miami is mentally defeated because of the way the game ended, I tend to go the opposite route and say it actually built them because they had to claw back in, I think Miami's going to bring it. I just have this feeling Jimmy Butler is going to go off and have himself a 50-point night, something like that. It has that making for it, So I'm taking Miami to win this game in a very, very hard-fought win. I'm taking Miami 107 and Boston 106.
I'm going to go Miami 115, Boston 12. Duncan Robinson game-winning 3-pointer.
That'd be something. It feels like it's going to be Jimmy with the ball, a Michael Jordan situation, you know?
Well,
And
let's not forget, Mike got everyone to pay attention to him, kicked it to Steve, and you know what happened next.
he did it to Steve and John Paxson.
And he also did it to Bill Wennington in the double nickel game, which were the only 2 points that Bill Wennington scored in that game. We're going to move it along to MLB.
Ooh.
Some takeaways from Saturday's action. The Rays hit their 100th home run. What is so big about that? They did it in August last year. The Yankees walk it off in your Texas Rangers, making a massive statement in Camden Yards. Let's start with the division-leading Rays for a moment. I'm not surprised anymore with them. I view them as a great organization for 15 years and counting. They have the occasional off year, but this is a team that has been in the mix and that does it their way. And it's against the trend of what most teams do in Major League Baseball to win in today's game. But you said off air going into this that you think this AL East is going to come down to the final week. Now, granted, we're approaching All-Star game in about 5 weeks or so, 6 weeks. So, yeah, it has the makings of not only the East, but your division, the West, possibly going into the final weekend. I do want to shout out Luis Severino today. Very long time since he's pitched and been able to pitch on that level, given his injury history. He really showed up and was able to match Michael Wacha. Michael Wacha pitched a beautiful game for the San Diego Padres today. And shout out DJ LeMahieu. LeMahieu took his time in that at-bat and guessed right. He guessed the pitch, and he sent it into the left field seats. And, you know, the Yankees outlasted the Padres today. It's funny because I said going into the Major League season on the preview shows, that was my World Series prediction, the Padres and the Yankees. And it did, to a level, kind of have that atmosphere of feeling like more than a regular season meeting in late May. Fernando Tatis showing off his star power, taking one deep. But today was about the pitchers. Both pitchers really showed up. The difference is the Yankees bullpen was just a little better than the Padres, and that's why we won today. But rubber match is going to be good. My prediction was 2 out of 3 for the Yanks going in, and I also predicted 2 out of 3 for your team, but your team might be looking at a sweep. Sending a big message out in Camden Yards.
Yeah, this Rangers team, I mean, they have shown resiliency in so many ways, but it almost seems like you have to get on top of the Rangers early because that resiliency kicks in and they're just going to take off with the game. And we saw it again tonight. And I've got to send shout outs to Corey Seager because ever since he has come back from his injury, the guy's been lighting it up, you know, and it goes back to what we talked about before the season, that with the no shift rules in place, he was going to be picking teams apart. And that has been on full display since his return. Watching him hit that grand slam last night, that was a thing of beauty. And then tonight it was more, hey, we need some pitching, but we need some hitting. And Marcus Semien steps up and has himself a good game, who's a guy, in my opinion, I think is in the top 3 in the AL for MVP this year. So it's
yes. In the early going, I think you're looking at 3 players that stand out in that league. Your guy Seager, my guy Judge, and everyone's guy Shohei Ohtani.
No, and I'm not even Seager. I'm going Marcus Semien from Texas. That I firmly believe that he's in the MVP race right now.
I actually misspoke. I meant to say Semien, but I'll tell you what. Right now, Nathan Eovaldi has really showed up on the level of where he is carrying himself as an ace. So if Jacob deGrom ever gets healthy, that's a problem right there, because Eovaldi, in my opinion, is having a career year. I mean, I've seen his good in Boston. I've seen his good in Tampa. I've seen his good in the Yankees. And he was a good pitcher for all 3 organizations. But I have never seen him reach this level with a team that he's doing with the Rangers right now.
And I think a part of it goes back to the whole where you're playing. Can you handle the media, things like that? Oh, 1,000,000%. Ronald Acuna is hands down the leader in the National League. And he was my pick before the season started to win it this year.
The truth is, you're not even going to mention anybody in the National League because I don't think anybody's coming close to that dude.
Well, I could say Pete Alonso because he's now hit home run number 20 tonight. I could make a case for Tatis with the way he is playing since his return to baseball. I could make a case for Max Muncy. There's a few guys, but in my opinion, Ronald Acuna right now it's these three, and then he's up here.
I'll tell you why I would not vote for either Muncy or Alonso. Yes, they do put the ball in the seats, but they don't hit for the kind of average that's going to be worthy of MVP consideration. That's my opinion.
That's a fair opinion, but I'm basing it more on if we're talking about a guy that's in the
now you see a guy hitting
40s,
240. That's a tough sell for MVP.
Who won the MVP last year?
Aaron Judge in the American League and in the National.
I'm talking about National League.
The National, it was.
He plays in Philly.
It was Kyle Schwarber, and he's that guy that's not going to hit 300. It was just because he hit 40-something home runs and he had the RBIs, and that's what I see with Pete Alonso. Do you recall roughly what his average was looking like last year?
I think he was at 256. I can check that real quick.
That's respectable. And the thing is, in today's MLB, I find that striking out and not hitting for, say, above 270 is not as frowned upon as it once was in the game. It's a different era of baseball.
Oh, 1,000,000%. And that's why I brought up that question about who won it last year, because when I look at the American League, I think the fun hitting, there's much better hitting in the American League than National League, even though there's bigger stars in the National League, if that makes any sense.
I also want to speak on the Mets for a moment since you brought up Pete Alonso. This is a team that you just never know what you're going to get. I mean, they win a series against MLB leading Tampa. It looked like things might have swung in their direction. Maybe they were starting to get their confidence back. They're getting rocked by the Colorado Rockies. You know, this is just a team that the only thing they do consistent is play inconsistently.
218.
Oh, man, that's wild.
And that's why I have Max Muncy and Pete Alonso up there, because it's just I mean, look at the American League. You had Aaron Judge, who was hitting in the 300s, Xander Bogaerts.
When you see stuff like that, well, Xander actually played in both leagues last year, technically. But the thing is like when you see this happen, wait a minute, Xander wasn't traded last year.
No, he was an offseason signing. So
I'm sorry,
the only reason why that Judge didn't get the Triple Crown was because Xander got the the hitting average.
I think I had a senior moment there because I was going back to my show season where Xander actually was leaving the Red Sox, and he was a deadline deal in my show season. And the show's pretty damn realistic. Dude, I'm off to a terrible April, by the way, in that game.
All I will say is, going back to Nathan, the fact that, he has had, I think his last 4 or 5 starts have been complete games. Mm-hmm. You got to tip your hat off to that. His ERA is coming down fast, and that people are forgetting him quickly because of the season, how it started. His first couple games playing with a new team, as expected, they were a little shaky. But since then, I was there witnessing one of them, and that was against your Yankees. This guy has been pitching, like you said, like an ace. DeGrom, I know, will be back soon. I fully expect it to be back right before the All-Star break. He's now pitching. He's looking good. The inflammation in his elbow, it's not bothering him anymore. So there's a lot of positives, and that's what excites me, is we're doing this right now without DeGrom.
No, it's something to feel good about. And
it is.
And when I think about my team, we're doing it without Rodon. Mm-hmm. Sevy just came back. And you know what's keeping the Yankees afloat?
Judge and Bader.
And the bullpen.
Yeah.
They have the best ERA in the American League for the bullpen ERA.
Yeah, they do.
And fun, it's a collection of guys. And even in the bullpen, you're missing Jonathan Loisiga, who's huge. Like last year, it was Michael King that we're missing. Now we're missing Loisiga, and that's a massive loss. I think the Yanks, A lot of people are talking, oh, get another starter, get another starter. There's no guarantee Frankie Montes returns this year. Clark Schmidt is gradually getting a little confidence. Still not a guy I want in the rotation. But I actually think the Yankees, if they make a move, are going to try to add to the pen. Because right now, when you look at the table setters we have, and you look at the meat of the order, and remember, you're missing 2 former league MVPs in Donaldson and Stanton, and I already made it clear what I think about that. I'm a little worried that they could slow down the offense. But this is a team that now that you have table setters, the entire offense looks more oiled and just looks better. And I'm talking about Bader and Volpe. And, IKF, excellent utility man.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because Ezekiel Duran has been a great utility guy for Texas this year, and IKF has been a pretty good utility guy for you guys. And, Ezekiel Duran, I think he's got 8 homers now on the season, and he has not played a whole season, so it's impressive. I think to go back to your point about the Yankees trading for bullpen, I think we're going to learn a lot in these next, I guess we'll say before the All-Star break, right around the trade deadline. If you guys are still right there, if you're 2 games behind and your bullpen has been holding up, I can't see you guys making a move because the chemistry and everything is already there, unless if you're going to get yourself someone that's just going to set it over the top.
And those are few and far between, because when I think of a guy that the Yankees could potentially get, maybe Finnegan from the Nationals, you gotta look for teams that are not having good seasons that might unload a talented piece.
And that's the other thing.
Like a guy like Aroldis Chapman, our former closer. I mean, there's no Yankee reunion, but I could see him going to a contender.
I could see him coming to Texas. And I say this wholeheartedly because I didn't expect Texas to be this good this year. Before the season started, I said, I actually think Texas is going to make the playoffs. You hyped me up about it. And then I started thinking of all the positives. And one of the big positives was DeGrom, not there. But the closer, they haven't really been in that situation where they need a closer to come on with a 5-4 lead to win the game. Texas has been winning these games pretty handily I think we have a run differential of 124.
124, that speaks on why – it's not high leverage or high usage. Sometimes you got to bring your closer in to make sure he gets work.
And and of course he's getting that. Of course he's been coming in and getting that. But I could see a guy like I kept saying before the season we needed a left fielder. Brian Reynolds seemed like the perfect choice for us or for you guys. But now as we see where Texas is, I think if there's something you're going to address, I can't give an argument to go for a pitcher when Martin, Uvalde, and then we know DeGrom was doing well. That's 3 great pitchers to start off. There's no justification.
I think towards the back end, you still might upgrade because, Heaney is a mixed bag. You don't always know what you're going to get with Heaney. So I would say that possibly you could see them making a deal for somebody. Who that is, I'm not too sure.
I don't know because Heaney's been, out of all 5 of our pitchers, he's been the one that's a little shaky, but John Gray's been pitching great. So it's I think Heaney's fine, especially when you talk about you still have a guy in AAA that I think they're going to trade. But that being Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker obviously is hurt for the season. That hurt.
Yeah, you hate to get rid of a young talent like Leiter who could still claim his career, but at the same time, it's you might be expedited a year or 2 ahead of schedule. We both knew they were going to be better. We didn't know how good, but this is a team that could potentially compete for a World Series. I mean, you got the usual suspects. You got my team. You got the Astros. You're a newcomer to the dance. The AL Central is very watered down, and of course, you got Tampa and you got Baltimore.
Yeah, and Tampa is no stranger to this. It's really Texas, Baltimore. The 2 teams, and I guess depends on what side of it you want to look at with Minnesota. Here's a team that last year underachieved, and this year they're winning the division. But is that because of horrible play and management by
somebody has to win that? Somebody, I view it as somebody has to win that division. I liken it to last year's NFC South. Somebody had to win the division. Speaking of the NFL, where will DeAndre Hopkins go? I'm going to tell you where he's not going to go. He's not going to the Giants, so I need all these Giant fans to get off that nonsense. We do not have the money to bring in a deal like that, even though it is somewhat team-friendly, I believe, where he's going to look. I think this is about being on a team that could win, not necessarily getting the bag. He's not going to Dallas. You guys got Brandon Cooks. That eliminated that possibility. I'm thinking Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, but my wild card, a team that nobody's thinking about that might make a play on DHOP.
Wait. Are they in the AL East? I'm sorry, the AL East, the AFC East?
I wouldn't consider them that much of a wild card now that they got Rodgers, but I'm assuming you're talking about the Jets.
No, that's not my pick.
The Patriots?
Yeah.
I don't think that he wants to go there. I'll tell you why. I think at his age, he's not going to have the patience to play with a guy like a Mac Jones. But I'll tell you where I could see him going. I could see him going to the Detroit Lions and joining Amon-Ra St. Brown.
All right, so I spoke to someone about that yesterday, and I was adamant about that he should go to Detroit. Detroit is a win-now team. As much as people do not want to admit it, they are a win-now team.
He gives them a lot of credibility. And, in my way too early off-air conversations with you, I have said that if the Lions get through training camp with most of their core intact, staying healthy, I actually believe that this is a team that could be in a position to be a top seed in the NFC, given the fact that the NFC East has such a ridiculously tough schedule, and they don't. You have a rebuilding Packers team. You have the Bears, who are, I think, trending upward, but still far from a sure thing if they're going to translate it to the field this year. And you have a Minnesota team that hasn't addressed the terrible defense. And that's the other part of this. Minnesota, where is Dalvin Cook, soon to be released? We're going to hit on that in a moment. Where do you have D-Hop going, though? I'm going to say it right now. One way or another, the Chiefs are going to figure out a way to bring him in.
So going back to what I was saying about him going to Detroit, as much as I would love him to go there, because I think that puts Detroit over the top, I still have Detroit being a 12-win team because of all the points just made.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
So but when I look at a D-Hop, I don't look at him as I'm going to go to a Detroit, a team that can possibly get it done, or this, because he also takes the city into account. And that's why I eliminate Detroit from this argument. I asked my buddy Brandon, he's a huge Lions. You honestly believe that DeAndre Hopkins would come to Detroit? He said no, for the points I'm saying. While they're a very exciting team to play for, I just can't see him doing it. I think you nailed it on the head. I think Kansas City. I mean, we're talking about the Super Bowl winners. We're talking about the guys that lost Juju Smith. They don't have that star receiver, but you still have to remember Travis Kelce is a year older. If you give him a DeAndre Hopkins, that's it. When it comes to salary, he's going to look at around $20 million. Now it comes down to how much of the guarantees he wants. That's one reason why I think the Giants could get him, because you guys still have $6 million under the cap, I believe it is. But
it's not out of the question.
It's not.
But I just don't think that that's the look the Giants are going for, mainly predicated off of the fact that you brought in a Paris Campbell. You brought in a tight end like Darren Waller to join Bellinger. Darren Waller could essentially serve as a wide receiver in a lot of sets because of his speed and his mismatch qualities. Wan'Dale Robinson coming off the injury. And not to mention you drafted Jalen Hyatt. So I think the Giants, when I think about what they're doing, it's more about a youth movement. D-Hop is not going to have the patience to play with any quarterback that's not going to feature his skill set all the time. And I'm not saying Daniel Jones can't throw the ball. I'm saying that that's not the way that I think the Giants are looking to do business on the field. I think it's either KC or Buffalo, and the reason why I give KC the edge is because in Buffalo, there's not enough room for two alpha dogs. And I don't think DeAndre Hopkins is going to necessarily love being the number 2 to Stephon Diggs, but it would make Buffalo a better team because it puts Gabe Davis down at 3, where I actually believe he belongs.
And, going back to the point you just made about the Giants and a youth movement, you guys are, in my opinion, in a win-now team, but at the same time, I look at this team coming up as an 8 to 9 win team. But if you can put a DeAndre Hopkins in that receivers room, while it's a good young receiving core, you need that veteran presence. And really, D-Hop has not exactly been a bad teammate. He's been a very good teammate for the
Oh
most part.
no, not by any means.
So you're not gambling on him by giving him $20 million per, because he's still a number one receiver. I think if you put him in that Giants offense, takes a lot of the stress from Daniel Jones and also your team, and then you're really going to know. I like Daniel. I think he made a lot of improvements last year. I think bringing in Brian Dable made the most sense because he is such a quarterback-friendly head coach, and we are seeing it again in full display. He developed Josh Allen, who everyone said, not everyone, but a lot of people argued about his accuracy. Brian Dable fixed that. He was a big reason why that is fixed. Now we saw Daniel Jones in year one. The turnovers were almost eliminated, and that speaks volumes. But now you were relying on a bunch of guys that were bagging groceries last year. If you could bring a D-Hop into that Giants offense, you can make the salary work because it's a simple fact of moving this or that around. And you still have one of the best left tackles in football who's only in his, third year? So
you have a couple of candidates currently on the roster that could actually move some money around to make it happen. I guess it really depends on I think it's such a strange scenario this year because when you got that other team that we share a stadium with, and I like this about going into this year. I said this to our buddy Quentin, who's a diehard Giants fan. I told him, I said, I like the fact that the Jets are going to get the headlines that are non-football related because it kind of puts us in a quiet place. Let them talk about AR8. Let them talk about Sauce. Let them talk about all this stuff that they're going to do before the season starts because those headlines don't win games. Let them get the attention. Let the Giants continue to quietly build what they got. I would certainly not be upset about adding a D-Hop. I just don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen.
No, and I think I really think, like you just said, the quietness, because that's what I was about to say about the Giants is whenever the pressure, the media, everything is not on them, but yet it's on the Jets, that's when they surprise people. We saw it again last year, and it's going to be the same thing. Most people, including myself and probably you, think this is a third-place team in the division. But once again, they're quietly getting better.
That gauntlet, if they could get through the first 10 with a 500 record, I think they can pick up 10 wins. Yeah, which would actually be a game improvement over last year. Because last year, the tie, which at the time looked like it was going to screw the Giants, actually helped the Giants. But, at the time, it certainly didn't look like that was going to be beneficial. Dalvin Cook, Buffalo's not happening. We've already spoken about this on the show in the past that he doesn't want to take away any opportunities from his younger brother. Miami could be a good destination for Dalvin.
What you got? What are you going with?
I'm kind of combing through these rosters in my head and saying to myself, is there someone that I'm really not thinking about? Miami makes so much sense to me. Truly, Miami makes a lot of sense. I also want to hit on King Henry for a moment. I'll tell you where I think King Henry makes sense. It's not going to happen, but I'm telling you where it makes sense. I think the combination of he and Ramondre Stevenson in New England could be devastating because it compensates. Every team in that division has an elite quarterback. How do you combat that if you don't have an elite quarterback? You have to have an elite running game. You have to have an elite defense. You have to have an elite. And the one thing about the Patriots, they will play defense. If the Patriots go get a Derrick Henry, and you got Juju Smith-Schuster last year, who was huge for KC, great downfield blocker, one of the more underrated route runners in the NFL, in my opinion. All of a sudden, New England might not be as bad as people think, but in that division, it's going to be very tough for New England. But Dalvin Cook, Miami, Derrick Henry, he's not going to be a Titan. But to be very honest with you, because the Eagles got DeAndre Swift, that would have been the perfect marriage. I am not 100% sure where Henry's going. The Atlanta Falcons, maybe? Cordarrelle Patterson taking a back seat out of there. You got Bijan. That would be sick, but it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
It's not Atlanta. So I will.
The Washington soon to not be Commanders?
No, that's Robinson's time to shine. We're talking about a guy that was shot before the season
I was
started.
thinking about the contrast of the two running backs could be beneficial.
No, because they still have Antonio Gibson.
How about Detroit?
No.
Not even. So when I say, I'm not just pulling the Patriots out of the sky. I actually think that could be the match.
I think I cannot convince you. There's no way in hell I can convince you and sit here and say that Dallas is going into the season with Tony Pollard as our number one back and then relying on the likes of a Malik Davis or Deuce Vaughn. As much as I'm excited about Deuce Vaughn getting drafted by Dallas, we're talking about a guy who's going to be probably like a Darren Sproles. I cannot convince myself to say it. I think that Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry will have the star on their helmet, but I think Dallas's order of operation is going to be Dalvin Cook first and then Derrick Henry as the consolation prize, because when you look at Dalvin, he would make that offense, which is going to be a top 3 offense in the NFL. Let's be real about that. They still relied on the likes of the running game year in and year out, and when we run the ball, we're a much better team.
Well, Dak's going to cut down the turnovers too if you're running the ball with high efficiency.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and like I said before, Dak, while he led the league in interceptions, when you look at the breakdown of those interceptions that were on him, as far as if they were on receivers, he was actually at the bottom. I think he only had 7 that were on him. So that to me is not bad, and I'm going to fight that because that's why I think the addition of a Brandon Cooks makes sense. But with their offense, they still need another running back, and it might very well be Ezekiel Elliott coming back as our third option.
I'll be honest with you, dude. My gut tells me that's what's going to happen. I think Zeke is still coming back.
I think it would be Zeke if Dallas was sitting at around $6 million in salary cap, but because Dallas has, I believe it's 16 to 22 million. I've seen conflicting reports. I haven't looked on Spoke Track, but if Dallas has 22 million,
they're going to try to go
running back
for the whole thing because.
We're getting a linebacker. We're getting
I get
a
it.
back.
I mean, you look at Dallas Cowboys history, whether it was Marion Barber, whether it was DeMarco Murray, then Zeke. You guys have been cursed with not being able to get out of that second round. But one thing that a lot of people will not argue with is that in these seasons when you had these various running backs, you guys had very good regular seasons, and in years that you came up short, many people still considered you an elite NFL team.
And the other problem about it is if we have this much salary cap, I have been adamant saying that this is Dak and Mike McCarthy's last chance.
Yeah, and with
you have the money, so that's why I think we're going to go out there and pay for a Dallas.
Jerry's the kind of guy. Jerry's the kind of guy that if he has ideas of moving along, he's going to give you every last chance to make sure that he wants to get rid of you. I mean, look how long it took him to get rid of Jason Garrett.
That's just been players and coaches. If there's one thing about Jerry, he's a family guy.
Well, that's Jerry's style too, and I know he had a loyalty to Garrett going back to being one of the better backup quarterbacks during the dynasty era Cowboys of the '90s. You know, Jason Garrett, his career moment truly was against Green Bay Packers on Thanksgiving. You know, a lot of people forget about that, but he was so well respected in that organization as not just a backup, but also on some levels a mentor to Troy. Before we get out of here, we're going to keep it on Dallas, though, and we're going to speak on your hockey team forcing the Game 6 of the NHL Western Conference Finals. Before we move it off of football, anything else that you want to hit on specific to football?
I mean, dude, we're in the summertime. We have OTAs going on now.
I got one. You just planted one in my head.
Aaron Rodgers and the tweaked calf. Like, these are things that the media is going to be hitting on throughout the summertime. Oh, is Aaron Rodgers this? Oh, we talked about Dalvin and Derek. Oh, the Eagles, they are the class of the NFC. Oh, Buffalo, can they catch up to Cincinnati and KC? There's so many things we could talk about, but we're going to have so much time to do it.
I'm going to say this. One last thing I want to say. You said it with the calf tweak, the tweak calf. Aaron Rodgers, something as minute as that, the fact that he already has the media members in the vice grip tells me everything I need to know about my earlier point about the Giants being kind of a little under the radar, even though we are coming off a playoff win, versus the Jets, who, yes, I think Robert Saleh did a hell of a job with that team. They ran through 3 different quarterbacks, none of them very good. Now you get a 4-time league MVP, and with good reason, he's going to bring a lot of cameras. That's just part of being an NFL superstar and a first ballot Hall of Famer. But I said it before, I'll say it again. The New York Jets absolutely have to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 years with Rodgers, or else it is all for naught. But when you have a 5-decade drought, I understand and actually give them the honest, logical blessing of why they did it. But it is a lot if they come up short.
Let me ask you one question. This is a very, very dream scenario. The Jets don't win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years. Aaron Rodgers retires, but he somehow becomes a person we've never seen and mentors Zach Wilson. And they win a Super Bowl after that with Zach. Is it actually a lose?
Well,
because the team is very young. So no matter what.
I think there's a more distinct possibility of Rodgers playing the mentor role because of the fact that he didn't like the way that Favre did him coming up. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that his most recent stint in Green Bay speaks mentor, but I do think that he was probably a little better with Love than Favre was with him. I think that's the best way to explain that. And the older he gets, I'd like to think he wants to leave something behind.
And I think that him going to the Jets and getting that fresh start is going to be a completely different Aaron Rodgers.
There's no reason to get rid of Wilson. He's under rookie control.
No, exactly. You're not getting rid of Zach, but you have the opportunity that maybe Aaron Rodgers does turn into the quarterback opposite of what we know he turned into, because now he was always holding a grudge against the Packers for never drafting him that star receiver. And now he goes to a team that showed they were all in and they're a team that's ready to win. And they got all the pieces in place. That it's very well that when you hear what the media is saying, that the players are saying, that Aaron Rodgers is out there smiling, helping out, things like that, things that you never heard that in Green Bay. It's like maybe he can salvage the career of a Zach Wilson and he can rewrite his final chapter and people will have a different view on him as he retires.
I also think that part of this is that with being in that city, it brings out that other part of you. Like Brett Favre truly wanted no part of New York. He was there to get to a different place. Rodgers
is made for that.
Yeah, Rodgers and once again, I love it because, as I already stated, and there's more to this as to why he's not wearing number 12. I don't think it was just a respect for Joe Namath. I think it's also because he doesn't want to wear that number in that uniform if he comes up short. But that would have been some shit if he would have took that same number after the guy wore it.
I think it's sad, I think it's sad, but I also think that when we see marriages end, that was a pretty bad ending. And I think he wanted nothing to do with that number because it still ties in to that team no matter what, And,
there is a history with 8 as well. He did wear it before the NFL. So there are reasons why it makes sense. And, you look at it.
I was going to say, imagine the slap in the face if Aaron Rodgers does, in fact, win a Super Bowl, retires, goes to the Hall of Fame as a Jet and not a Packer.
That would never happen.
That would never happen, I wouldn't think. But imagine the slap in the face if it did. And that was his final statement about the way that marriage ended.
Nah, it wouldn't happen for the sheer fact that when you look at his exit letter to Green Bay, it's not as ugly as everybody thinks. Because the truth of the matter is that Green Bay still sent him where he wanted to go.
He dated an actress for a long time. Of course he knows how to write those letters.
I get it. But the fact that Green Bay moved him where he wanted to go, I don't think it was as toxic as everybody thinks. I just think that, once again, when the media chooses you're going to be the asshole, he's going to be the golden boy, this guy's nice, this guy's, they make these decisions.
He didn't have to be the asshole. No matter what, he was going to get that $60 million. That's why for him, he could sit back. All right, you want to hold on to me? Pay me my money.
But
You want
people,
to trade me?
people do get all irritated about, oh, he's selfish and Devontae. Meanwhile, Devontae made less going to the Raiders. And for what? To play with his boy for half a season or for 3/4 of a season?
And now he's trying to get out of Las Vegas.
Of course he's trying to get out of there. And you know what? Like, you make a decision, stand on it. I hate that with certain athletes. It's like, it's always greener. It's always greener. That happens. And I'm like, dude, you're leaving Aaron Rodgers to go play with Derek Carr? On no universe does this make sense. And I don't even care if Brett's right and he improves this year. Dallas Stars forcing a Game 6. NHL Western Conference Finals. Zappy, take it away.
Dude, I thought this series was over. I thought it was over. I did not feel good coming into this series. And after game 1 and 2, I was like, nah, I know we're going back to Dallas. It just doesn't feel right. Game 3, Vegas took control, 3-0 lead. But these last 2 games, especially today, watching this Stars team play, it almost feels a lot like Boston with the Celtics. And they had to win today without the likes of Jamie Benn, who got suspended. And he comes back for Game 6. This series is going to Game 7. It's going back to Las Vegas. Dallas is riding the high. That third period tonight was remarkable. And you could see that they're just having fun. And that's number one. I will say this. What a great time for the city of Dallas. You have your Stars that are battling back. You have the Rangers, who are first place in the AL West, second best record in all of baseball. This is a fun time, man. I'm loving sports right now. I will say that. And we're not even really talking about football yet.
I mean, this is another one similar to the Boston Celtics that they're quietly getting back into the series, because I was very taken back when they lost their composure and went down 0-3. I was like, nah, man, that's not the Stars team that I know over the last few years. But let's see if they can force a Game 7 similar to what the Celtics did today. Final thing, Zap, I did a solo video, so I wasn't able to get your thoughts on this, and we could run out the last few minutes talking about this topic. Your thoughts on Kwame talking that ish on LeBron?
Look, the one thing we have to understand as human beings is we tend to listen to the voices of a Shannon Sharpe or the voices of a Michael Irvin, guys that had very successful careers. And so when they go to bat for another player, people are going to listen. What Kwame Brown said was not only said by him, but has been said by many, many other people. But because Kwame Brown is a younger guy, he's a guy that was the number 1 pick in the NBA. He's a guy that was supposed to be the next best center, but flopped. It's easy for Shannon Sharpe to go after him. But when I look at the NBA and I look at number 1 picks, that doesn't always translate to anything. In the NBA, there are 64 players that get drafted every year. And in football, there's 256 to 260, depending on compensatory picks. You cannot compare the two. I agree with what Kwame Brown said, and I've been saying it for a very long time. But it's just a simple fact that why we're talking about this right now is because it was a guy that was a number 1 pick who went on social media, and Shannon Sharpe picked him specifically because people knew who he was, and because he was a nobody, it's easier to attack him.
This is my thing. It's not so much about whether I agree with him or not, because some points to a level I do. I don't think it's what you say. I think it's more so how you say it. And I think the reason why Kwame loses some credibility amongst not only former athletes that cover sports, or a person like myself with a podcast, or people who are members of the media, is that I feel that it's coming from a venomous place, because I still think that Kwame is so very sickened and turned off about his NBA experience, so to speak. And I think that is more his motivation to be disrespectful to LeBron than the actual facts itself. Because I do think that there's a way LeBron has never so much as even acknowledged this kid. So it's not like there's a bad blood there. So I think in that regard, he looks like an asshole.
And that was the whole point I was making, is because LeBron has never acknowledged him. It's what many other people are thinking. It's that simple. And now with a lot more people sitting here saying he no longer has that argument for GOAT.
I said it on the last show I did which is a solo bit. If Bill Russell was still alive and still here with us, if he had something to say, he commanded that respect to be heard.
Yep.
Same goes for Jabbar. Grizzled veterans that are out of the league now, guys like Barkley, guys like Ewing, guys like Shaq, guys like your guy, MJ, Scotty even, Dennis Rodman, whatever have you. The point I'm making is that I'm not saying you have to be a top 75 player to have a valid opinion, because I think JJ Redick makes some great opinions and some great takes.
Oh,
This is more predicated off of a guy who I think is looking for headlines because he is still salty about how his NBA career went. In the grand scheme of things, is he the bust of, say, a Greg Oden or a Sam Bowie? No, I don't think he's as much of a bust as those two. But I will say that I think he comes off as a bit of a salty bitch. And, I'm not – it's so funny. For the last couple of episodes – to a level, I'm actually over here showing a little bit of defense for LeBron. So in order for me to defend LeBron, you got to really help me to that direction.
But when we talk about the hype of the players coming out during that time, Kwame Brown does not come top 10. The only reason why he had any type of hype was because he was a high schooler. But he did not get hyped up as being the next great thing on any level. He was just another big high schooler that everyone.
You take a Darius Miles. Darius Miles was one of the most impactful basketball players when I was in high school that didn't do a whole lot in his NBA career, but so many kids just thought he was so friggin' cool.
There's a lot, and that's why I can't put him on the label as a flop or even being just upset and stubborn I don't think it's that.
And the high school kid thing, that was another aspect that it wasn't so much as a novelty anymore, because in a lot of regards it showed on the court, because a lot of these guys' games were not fully groomed, and I think it truly hurt, because for every Kobe and for every LeBron that comes out of high school, you have so many guys that actually suffer in their careers because of the fact that they left too early or came out too early.
And I'll give you two other names who were projected to have better careers than Kwame Brown. They were both drafted by the Chicago Bulls. One of them became a great defensive player in the league, but he just didn't get to that point as a Bull. The other one was a complete flop, and he was called the next Shaquille O'Neal. That was Tyson Chandler and Eddie Curry. That's why I cannot hate on Kwame. That's why I think Shannon Sharp simply went after someone and that was in that position where he's like, I got to look for a number one pick, and went for it. And that's why I can't put a lot of hate on it, because there were so many other players that when they were drafted out of high school, the expectations were so much higher.
I get it. I can't
put him on the top 5.
But this is the thing. Those other players with all the hype are not talking shit to LeBron James. This guy's making it easy.
We don't know that, because
this guy's making it easy. This guy's making it easy to be that dude. That's what I'm trying to explain. I'm not saying that the point isn't the point, but it is awfully comical if you're a former NBA player and you're going to go in on a guy, but what big shot did you ever make that somebody's going to remember you for? And I think that's a valid question. Like, I understand that the media is the media, but the media never played. They have a certain way that they go about dealing with athletes. When you're a former jock, it comes with the territory. If you're going to talk that shit, you got to be ready to get it back.
So what do you think about the Spurs rookie this year, who a couple weeks ago during the series said, Jeremy Sulkin, he said, like, LeBron's the biggest flopper in NBA history and things like that. Like, we're talking about a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
Is his point invalid, or is it shut up? Because I can't take that away from them just because they played in the NBA, because there's a lot of other stars that are saying the same thing, but they won't go to those guys because they're bigger stars.
I'm from the mentality that whether if it's true or not, I just feel that you have to have a little time in before you start going at anyone who played the game for 2 decades at that level. And I don't care if it's LeBron, I don't care if it's Jordan, I don't care who it is. I think that that's just my mind state. If you're new to this league, whether you like the dude or not, there is a respect that should be shown on some level for a guy who's been doing it that long. And that applies to all these NBA vets that have been around a minute. The same respect I would give a LeBron James for greatness is the same respect I'd give a Udonis Haslem for just still doing it and still being in the league. I respect him a lot too, and he hasn't done anything noteworthy on a court in a while, but it's the presence. It's what he used to be. It's the fact that being in the NBA and holding off a roster spot still says something about you at that juncture of your career.
Oh yeah, I will take that.
Same could be said about D Rose.
Yeah, no, and that's just that, and that goes back to my point that in the NBA, the success rate is very small.
But to basically answer your question, my thing is, I just can't justify talking shit to someone that's been doing it for 2 decades. Whether I like him or not, that's not even what it's about. I think that's part of the issue here. When a guy like Kwame talks that shit, it looks like he's coming out from a very vengeful place. I'm like, make your point, but why are you so mad?
I'll say this. If I ever got the opportunity to sit down and have an educated conversation with LeBron James, I'm going to talk that shit. I'm going to support everything with every fact that I can present. And then I'm going to continue. And I am a nobody.
No, we're all somebody. But the one thing I will say, though, Zap, the one thing I will say, and once again, I'm not saying that I'm a LeBron fan, because I'm the first to tell you I'm not. But what I do find kind of sad is that he is literally the most hated athlete I could ever recall.
Because when you self-proclaim yourself as the greatest ever and you disrespect all the players before you that did it, it tends to make people upset with you.
I could agree with that.
And that's my number one reason why. Because when you were self-proclaiming yourself as an 18-year-old kid coming out of high school as the greatest kid and all this stuff, and then when you go on and you did all the things and you still continue to call yourself the greatest to have ever played the game, that's why I cannot show him the respect, because that is a slap in the face that guys that did it for a very, very long time. And yeah, they may have did it in a shorter amount of time, but they had much better resumes to support their careers.
That's more of an answer that I could find logical and acceptable. But I do think that part of the thing that gets to me with the way that he is constantly disrespected is, at the end of the day, this is a sport. There's a lot that he does away from the sport that's commendable, and I think in that regard, it does baffle me to a level of how people. Because I think like this is the thing, right? I could hate a dude that's on a team of a rival or something. Like, okay, Dak Prescott, let's use him for an example. But when I think about NFL Man of the Year and who he is as a human being, I'm not going to blur the lines and if I see him in the street, be like that to him, give him the Eli Doublebird. You know what I'm trying to say? You have some of these asshole fans. You have some of these asshole fans that go out of their way to see if they could get snuffed by an NBA player to go get a quick payday.
No, and I will say this. When I talk about a LeBron James and all the hate I'm giving towards him, it has nothing to do with
between the lines.
Yeah, it all is basketball talk and strictly basketball talk, because what he does as a human outside the arena, he's one of the best. There's hands down, probably the best. The education he has provided to children that probably would not have gotten that education, the amount he has donated, all the other things, I will not take that away from him. I talk about LeBron, the basketball player, and not the person.
Oh, I know where you're coming from.
Because LeBron and Michael Jordan as a person, LeBron blows him away. So whenever people try to bring up things about Jordan, I'm like, yeah, I get it, but we're talking about the player on the court only, and that's it.
My thing when it comes to that is, like, I think I said it. Too many people just they take it way past the sport itself. We're coming up on the 30-second mark. We appreciate you guys staying up late with us and hanging. For my guy, you got 20 seconds. Spit it.
I know. And I think I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for our next show. It's a good one. Sounds
good. I might hear about it when we're off air. For my co-host, Mr. Mike Zappi. I am your host, Richie. Had a great time hanging tonight. Really spoke about a lot of cool stuff. Please like and subscribe to the channel, Richie Hicks Sports Podcast on YouTube. We out.